guys a clip of Paul discussing in a men's meeting how to impregnate your wife to most likely have a female daughter. If you guys saw my last video, I talked a lot about direction and how it contradicts what they were doing with the blood testing. If you're believing in direction and you're doing what God wants, then you shouldn't be worried that your babies aren't going to be born because of the incest. But then they start doing the blood testing, yada, yada, yada. Go watch that video if you don't know what I'm talking about. But I'm going to say this again, if you believe in direction and you're marrying the right person, then why do you have to change how you're having sex with your wife to be able to create a female baby? If God wanted you to have a female baby, don't you think that he would have done that? Why are you coercing the system? Okay, I'm going to play that clip for you guys right now.
We're missing the female births. And so what I'm going to say is you can influence whether you have a boy or a girl by the timing of when you're together with your wife. And so your goal is, from this point on, to have more births.
Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Amanda Ray, and I was born and raised in a polygamous incestuous cult known as the Order in Salt Lake City, Utah. Today we're going to be talking about that cult that I was born and raised in, specifically how they're running out of women. How they need women. They need your women. They need their women. They need everybody's women. Everybody's women, here. You need to join the order because they're running out of them. Because Paul has 27 wives and he needs a lot more. So the order started in 1935 by a man named Eldon Kingston. He had 5 wives, and originally he started the order not really as a religion. One of the biggest things was consecration, and he didn't believe in underage marriages or incest. That quickly changed. So during Eldon's time as leadership, he gave out 45 numbers. He was numbering men as they joined the order, and so basically he had 45 men join the order. The numbering system has evolved with each new leader. So Eldon gave out 45 numbers to 45 men before he passed away. The core beliefs of the order are consecration and celestial marriage. Celestial marriage is polygamy, which is what we're all going to be living in, the celestial kingdom, the highest kingdom of heaven. So how does a polygamous church... So my camera died, but we're just going to power through with my phone. So I honestly am curious what the quality difference is in the phone versus the camera. I don't know. Because I was filming on this camera, but this camera died. As I was saying before, the original leader of the order, Brother Eldon, gave out 45 numbers. As people were joining, they were given a number. So Eldon's number was number 1. And in his time, he had 5 wives. He died very young, in his 30s. And I've told this story before, and I'll leave the video link down below, but his members thought that he was going to be resurrected like the new second Christ. So they left his body in a tub filled with ice. If you want that whole story, I'll leave it linked down below. Anyway, so he didn't resurrect. So after he was not resurrected, the way Eldon ran the church kind of got thrown out the window, and everyone was having a heyday marrying their sisters and underage little girls. And we have a public example of this when David O. Kingston went to prison for trying to marry his underage niece. David O. Kingston's number 33, and he's full brothers to the leader Paul, number 9. The current leader is Paul.
We're missing the female births.
So how do you have a polygamous group like this? And how does every man get wives when Paul's over here having 27 wives to himself? The correct answer is they don't. Men become old and single. But how are they supposed to live the celestial law of polygamy, right? There's a celestial law that they're supposed to be living so that they can get to the celestial kingdom, but Paul's taken up all the wives. He has 27 wives and over 300 kids. He makes sure that his family has the women before the rest of the non-Kingston swine get them. Paul actually has, I've been told that Paul keeps track of the ages of all of these girls to see when they're going to be ready to be getting married. And Jesse's family, at least when I was in the order, I remember them having dance cards. Jesse would have a whole list of young girls from certain age groups and he would have the list, and it was all printed out at advanced copy, the order-owned copy shop. All of our names were on there, and their boys were given these lists to go dance with these young girls. So they were keeping track and keeping a record of the ages of these girls so that they could marry them as fast as possible. Paul basically sees women like cattle. He breeds these women like cattle. He makes sure that all of his wives are tracking their ovulation so that he can go impregnate them as quick as possible to get as many babies to the earth as possible. He just wants to get the women pregnant as fast as possible so he can build his own kingdom of God. I even remember my mom saying, they're breeding us like cattle. There was a rule that I don't know how long this lasted, but someone got up in church and said, don't breastfeed your kids because that's a form of birth control and you want to be able to get pregnant as much as possible. So my mom didn't breastfeed any of her kids. She didn't breastfeed any of the kids in the beginning because she was told not to because it's a form of birth control. But then after she didn't breastfeed, she couldn't breastfeed. It was like her body wouldn't let her because her body didn't know how. So none of us were breastfed, and that's why I'm the way that I am. And that's why I ended up like this. So they're breeding us like cattle. They even had examples in church talking about comparing us to cattle, talking about how if you have the DNA of a strong, what are those cows called that are male cows? A strong bull, and you breed them with the women, then you have strong calves. Basically saying that you need to marry the one that God wants you to because you want those good genes. Or else you're gonna have the wrong kids, you know, the wrong genes from the wrong. This is something that was always confusing to me. I always had this question of, okay, so what if I marry an outsider, which is forbidden, right? So I marry the outsider and I have kids, which are the wrong kids because they're not of the right cattle. Then those kids just go to hell because they're the wrong kids because the parents, like, it just doesn't make sense, you guys. Make it make sense. So Paul's breeding us all like cattle, and he just needs to get his numbers up. I think that he just looks at everyone's numbers, like as many babies that can get born so that my numbers can grow so that I can build my own kingdom of God, because you have more workers, you have more tax fraud that you can be doing with these people, you have more people's names to be forging on things, more power. So Paul wants girls, right? Girls are scarce in the order. The single girls in the order are all like 15, 16. They're young girls, okay? There's not a lot of single girls in their 20s at all. So what are they gonna do? They're trying to get men to figure out how to create more girls by having sex in the correct position, but then they're also trying to poach other groups for their girls. They're trying to get girls externally, which they don't have missionaries like LDS people. No one's gonna join the order. Can you believe knocking on the door, hi, do you wanna join the order? Yeah, my parents are half brother and sister, but God told them to do that, so. Some people might join actually if they go to Alabama. So instead of doing that, they go to other polygamous groups and try to get the women to come into the order. One of the first cases of poaching other women from other cults that I can recall is, so when Warren Jeffs went to prison, he told his members to stop paying property tax, and then that caused an issue with the government and their homes got taken away. So the order lent out their hand and let a lot of these women and children live in their properties in Hiawatha in hopes to get these women. And they did. There were some women that actually did join the order. A lot of the time, though, these women still believe heavily in the FLDS, and they just want to be married and having children, but they still believe in Warren Jeffs. So it's very controversial. There's also been AUB that's joined, and it's kind of ruined families because the order really pressures any people who marry into the order. They pressure them to sign 10% forms and inventory forms, and it becomes a big issue, especially because these girls still believe in the religions that they came from. Another time that I recall the Kingstons rushing over to the FLDS was when that flood in 2015 happened. I remember seeing news reports and seeing Daniel Kingston in the pictures, and I was like, why is Daniel over there? Daniel's never up to good, so he's doing something weird. We also remember the time when Tom Green was welcomed into the order. Tom Green was welcomed into the order. If you guys don't know who Tom Green is, because a lot of people are like, Tom Green the comedian? No. Tom Green, this guy. He has multiple wives, a bunch of kids. Maybe I'll do a little briefing on Tom Green right here.
Tom Green is serving a 5-year sentence in a Utah state prison.
I can't understand why it should be a crime.
Today, he faces an additional charge. He's accused of conceiving a son, Melvin, with his wife, Linda, when she was only 13 years old.
So I remember in the order, people using Tom Green as an example of people getting prosecuted for living polygamy and why we needed to keep polygamy a secret and we shouldn't tell the outside world about polygamy because look at Tom Green, he's getting prosecuted for living polygamy. But the reality is they investigated him because of the polygamy but found that he was basically a pedophile. And when you follow polygamists closely, you will find a lot of pedophiles. And so it's interesting that the order, all these men, didn't mention the fact that Tom Green was serving for getting a little girl pregnant. And it really is telling that there's a reason why they didn't focus on that part of it. And they made it seem like he was a martyr, like Joseph Smith, like being tarred and feathered for no good reason, when there was actually a very good reason.
So Tom Green, towards the end of his life, joins the order with his wives and children, daughters. He dies of COVID shortly after. He was given the number 269 and they have it on his coffin. Remember I talked about the numbering system, how back in the day it was, you know, whoever joined the order gets a number, but since, I know it's all gone all the way up to 269, but not everyone in the order has a number, and Paul uses the numbers as kind of like a brownie point system, like holding it over their head, like, oh, let's see how much you're gonna do for me for this number. So if you give a lot of money, you can get a number. If you give your whole life to the Lord, some people have been on their deathbeds and finally got a number, but Tom Green was given a number when he died, and I believe it's because all of his wives were given to the order, and I think some of his daughters too were married to ordermen. He got the number 269 and his wives were given to number 69. I talk about this in Called a Cup of Coffee 69. It was Daniel's son that got Tom Green's wife. So Paul likes to affiliate with these other groups, but he hates when these other groups take his women. Just think of it this way. Paul hates when his own daughters marry even people in the order if they're not Kingston enough. Can you imagine if they married AUB? There was a case where a woman did marry an AUB and they got upset. Another woman married a Green, Tom Green's son, but she left the order for him. People were upset. So they don't like that. They like the girls to stay in. And I think my opinion is Paul gets in cahoots with these other polygamists and he's like buddy-buddy with them, like, yeah, we'll help you out, but he always has an ulterior motive. Paul's gonna get what he wants and Paul's gonna wanna win every time. So Paul probably makes them think that he just wants to, you know, combine resources, blah, 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 but he really needs women, and that's his main goal, is to get your women. If anyone from these other cults is watching, just know that that's on Paul's mind 24/7, is how can I get more girls? How can we get more girls? But plus, because I think a lot of girls are leaving, because it's not very fun in the order for us. I think all the women know that. Let's talk about the Blackmores for a second, okay? Paul even is in cahoots with the Blackmores. He was seen recently in Missouri, which is where a big section of the Blackmores is moving to. If you guys don't know who the Blackmores are, I'll give you a brief history lesson on them as well.
Who said I have 20 wives and 80 children?
Oh, how many wives and how many children do you have then?
Well, I'm certainly not here to talk about my private life. I have agreed to say that I have more wives than one.
That's your private life? I got one husband, I'll tell you.
Well, good for you. And I hope you love him and take care of him and don't criticize him and support him and do all the things that wives should do with their husbands. And I sure would hope that you wouldn't sit around here with people and talk about your private life, because I'd scold you.
So Paul's seen in Missouri with the Blackmores. He was seen with a couple of his wives, and there was some kind of ceremony going on. This is just what I had heard from someone who was there. There was some kind of ceremony where they wanted Paul to be there, and he was there, and he stayed even at one of the Blackmores' homes with his wife. He comes off as so innocent and charismatic, but really, again, another ulterior motive. Don't think he's not looking at your girls, because he is. He's looking at all these potential girls that he could be bringing. Doesn't matter the age, doesn't matter the age. If we remember the story of, I was holding the baby and I just knew I was gonna marry her. And then they tell that story in the order of their grandpa that held the baby, and they have the picture of him holding the baby that he knew he was going to marry, that he did end up marrying, glorifying pedophilia. I remember hearing these stories. Are you wondering why Missouri? I was wondering why Missouri too. Why is this group randomly in Missouri? Because they originally was hanging out in Canada, right? Well, originally from the FLDS, but then Canada and now Missouri, right? So I guess FLDS has a branch in Canada, so maybe that's why they're in Canada. I digress. They go to Missouri because Joseph Smith was from Missouri. And Joseph Smith's preachings, for those of you who don't know, Joseph Smith started the LDS Church, which started polygamy, which started everything that trickles down to the order, blah, blah, blah. Joseph Smith believed that Missouri was Zion, that Jesus Christ was going to come back in his second coming in Missouri. And I quote, "God designed Western Missouri as the place where Zion would be gathered in anticipation of Christ's second coming." So it's believed that a lot of LDS people and a lot of polygamists are huddling over in Missouri together. So that makes sense why Paul's over there. I'm not sure if, I bet you Paul has already bought property over there because everybody else is in that believe in the polygamy thing and the second coming, Armageddon, whatever. But Paul also has gotten property in South Dakota. Do you guys remember on Escaping Polygamy, the compound, when we were trying to go find Rachel Jeff's younger sister in Pringle, South Dakota?
I was up on the porch.
I've been told that order members are on that compound and that they bought that compound. For what reason? I don't know. Do you think that they're gonna follow in the FLDS footsteps where they send people away to the compound that are trying to run away? It would make a lot of sense because there have been women recently leaving their husbands and running from the order, and it would be a lot harder for them to do that if they're stuck on this compound that literally has a prison tower watching them non-stop. So anyways, at the end of the day, Paul wants your girls. So hide your kids, hide your wives, because Paul's gonna come find them. But if they're not white, you're safe. There was actually, Priscilla told this story that she was scared when she found out she was pregnant with a girl, but then she was relieved because she's like, oh, my child's not white, so they're not gonna want her. But when Chanel was pregnant, when they found out that her baby was a girl and that it was white, they were being super nice to Chanel and trying to get her and her baby back in the order. They want girls. They're definitely more inclined to go get them girls. So I don't really know if this was for order members or for outsiders more. I feel like it's kind of a warning to order members, but it's also insight for outsiders. The more I talk about it, the more I kind of just realize the crap I was in, and I'm so grateful that I got out, because I look at my life now and then what I would have been, and I think that I would have been very trapped. I wouldn't know any of you guys, and I wouldn't be here. I don't know that I would have made it if I stayed in the order, because it was so hard being a woman in the order, being pressured to do the things that they wanted the women to do. There's an insane amount of responsibilities on a woman in the order, and it's not healthy, and I feel for these women every day. I feel for these women. I think of the women that I used to know, and I wonder how they're doing. Sometimes I really don't wonder. I feel like I know because I was a woman in the order. So if there are any women in the order watching this, I want you to know that I've never done any of this to try to hurt you, but I understand that it gets received as me trying to hurt you guys. If any women in the order are watching this right now, it's probably because you might feel a little bit alone and you might feel trapped. And I just want you to know that I was there too, and a lot of women are feeling those same feelings that you are feeling, which you probably didn't even realize. And I can tell you this because I get a lot of messages from married women, from single women that are in the order looking for options to leave because they feel trapped and they feel scared and they feel alone. And I just want you to know you're not alone, and there are resources to help you. I always have Holding Out Help's information in the description box down below. I try my best to respond to your guys' comments on Instagram. It is a little bit harder because there's a lot of people that do message, but just know that you're not alone, and there's so many of us out here that are willing to lend a hand to you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. I also want to thank everyone who's shown so much support on the outside, who's never even been in the order but been able to empathize, and honestly I think it's helped a lot of order members. The ones that are in secret watching, seeing the comments of how supportive you guys are, I truly think that that's affected a lot of their perspectives of the outside world and made them feel more comfortable in leaving. So thank you guys so much, and thank you for the kindness you showed me and everybody else that has left on my channel or shared their story on my channel. It truly does, it's made me cry happy tears. So I appreciate you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next video.